Ja is one of the most electrifying and exciting basketball players in the world right now. Highlights of him are always all over SportsCenter, ESPN, House of Highlights, or wherever else they post highlights. It seems like he goes viral every day at this point for a play. In this Warriors series, he's averaging a ludicrous 41 9 and 9 on insane efficiency. The 47 point he had to win game 2 carrying the Grizzlies was genuinely one of the greatest games I've ever seen a point guard play in my life. It doesn't take a basketball genius to see and notice Ja's ridiculous athleticism. He's one of the most athletic players not only right now but of all time, especially at that size. Standing at 6'3", he has one of the best mixtapes of all time already. But in my opinion, what makes Ja one of the best athletes of all time is not just his ridiculous vertical leap or his dunks. So what makes him such a special player and an athlete? Let's talk about it.
They be like, what? Can you teach me how to duck it? You know why? Cause all the bitches love it. All I need is a beat that's super bumpin'. And for you to back it up and dump it.
Leave a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. I drop regular NBA content and the NBA playoffs going on, they should interest you. So do subscribe to the channel and make sure you stay till the end so you don't miss anything. Yes, Ja does have extremely cool dunks and transition plays, but there are many players in the league who do too. But what allows Ja to be this good is the subtleness in his game, which is funny to think about because when you think of Ja, you think cool dunks and powerful athleticism. Ja is one of the best non-big finishers in the league right now. He has a ridiculous touch around the rim, which allows him to make the wildest finishes. Ja is one of the best mid-air athletes ever. His mid-air contortions and the adjustments he makes in the middle of the air to generate angles which are never there to begin with to get a window to finish are actually ridiculous. Usually, many players in the league decide what to do and jump to take that shot. Like for example, take Steph Curry or Trae Young. Both of these players go to the scoop shot very often, but you will notice that they decide to take the scoop shot before jumping. It isn't really a bad thing or anything because both of them are so good and elite at scoop shots, it doesn't really matter when. But when you look at Ja, he jumps 40 feet above the ground and then switches into a scoop shot, which makes his shot that much harder to contest. It's not only scoop shots either. There's the finish last game versus a Draymond contest, where Dre does an incredible job of cutting off an easy finish, but Ja, being Ja, generates an angle out of nowhere for a ridiculous finish at the rim. As mentioned before, Ja is 6'3", he's only 174 pounds. Most people at this size struggle against contact, whereas Ja is incredible against contact. He does a really good job of absorbing contact, and even though he's only 174 pounds, he's much stronger than he looks. His core strength is much stronger than people realize at his size. And when you combine this with his ridiculous athleticism, it allows him to absorb contact very well and finish through contact at a very high level. He uses his absolutely insane mid-air abilities to finish around or even over defenders. He can finish with either hand, he can finish at either side of the rim, has a ridiculous layup package, has scoop shots, reverse shot, double clutches, manipulation and many such arrays of moves in the air. He has probably the best hang time in the league right now. If you're even a couple tenths of seconds late to jump at the same time as him, it becomes impossible to contest his shot because he's already so high and so quick already. Being this ridiculous at the rim is good, but getting to the rim so that he can do this is just as important to absolutely maximize his abilities. And Ja is elite at getting to the rim. Ja is one of the greatest drivers of all time, and that's not an exaggeration. Ja this regular season averaged 21 tries per game, the third most in the league this season, but he averaged 14.8 points of tries per game. The most not only this season, but most since NBA.com started tracking drives in 2013-14. The way he gets to the rim and drives is truly special to watch. He has a ridiculous burst in first step and an even quicker second and third step, which make it basically impossible for players to keep up with him. He puts defenders behind his back constantly, and when centers sag off of him when this happens, he gets a full head of steam and enough momentum to finish at the rim over or around centers. Ja has an elite handle too. He gains so much momentum from his crossovers, something which will remind you of prime Russell Westbrook. But what separates Ja is how good he is at maintaining his pace. Usually guards of his archetype don't really have a control over their pace, they're very frantic. And this is the subtleness about Ja. He can maintain his pace and change his pace at a very high level. He's really good at stopping and going, decelerating and accelerating. He maintains his handle in the paint very well and probes around constantly looking for better shots. It also helps that Steven Adams is one of the best sealers in the league. So this combined with his probing generates a lot of easy buckets for Ja. Steven Adams is also a really good screen setter, which helps Ja get easier buckets. His burst and first step off the pick and roll combined with Steven Adams' hard screen setting leads to high percentage offense. Ja is really good at reacting to pick and roll coverages and problem solving. You'd think when a player like Ja doesn't really have the best jumper in the league, the defense can sag off him and play draw. But no. Ja is so good at eating up all the space the defense gives him, and giving him that much momentum is just asking for trouble. So what the Timberwolves did was put multiple long defenders like Jaden McDaniels on him and just started trapping Ja and double teaming him, which worked to an extent. But another thing about Ja is he's one of the best passers in the league. So even though he initially struggled for a half a game or something, he masterfully figured out the defense and started tearing it apart with his passing and playmaking. He was splitting double teams and changing direction like it was nothing in game 1 and 2 before he hurt his thigh. So when he hurt his thigh, he masterfully adjusted and started playing as an elite playmaker, averaging over 10 assists per game in the first round. So you have one of the best finishers at the rim, who constantly draws help and uses high-level passing to create open three-pointers constantly at one of the best levels in the entire league. This combination makes him one of the best offensive players in the league at just the age of 22 and in year 3. The thing is, he isn't even close to being that improving yet. He won Most Improved Player this year. Whether or not you think he deserves it because of his previous stardom, you can't deny the fact that he has taken a massive leap to superstardom or borderline superstardom this season. Like, one of the biggest concerns with him out of college was his lack of in-between game and a lack of a floater. But this year, he's developed one of the best floaters in the entire league. Just the threat of his floater and his push shot allows him to draw defenders even closer, allowing him to drive easier. He's shooting over 43% on over 2 floater attempts per game, and his finishing touch is on full display with his floater. He has made multiple in-season improvements too, improving as a decision maker and reacting to what defenses throw at him very well. He used to struggle against blitzes, and now he effortlessly splits his double teams to generate 4-on-3s for the Grizzlies constantly. He has improved as an off-ball player, and as the season progressed, has made big leaps as a jump shooter. Ja's combination of vertical athleticism, core strength, change of speed, mid-air contortion, flexibility make him one of the best athletes not only right now, but one of the best athletes of all time. The Warriors might not really have an answer for him right now, especially without Gary Payton II. They're switching on over half of the screens the Grizzlies set, and guys like Clay, Poole and Steph are absolute food for Ja on offense. I'm curious to see what they throw at him this series as it progresses, and whether or not they have an answer for him, because Ja looks absolutely unstoppable right now. With that, we've come to the end of the video. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already.